Good morning, students. In today's class, we are going to discuss about anatomy of flowering plants. So, from this chapter, we are going to discuss few subtopics about dicotyledonous leaf and monocotyledonous leaf explanation, and followed by secondary growth. So now let's begin today's session. And first and foremost, we are going to discuss about dorsiventral leaf, and also it is called as dicotyledonous leaf. So now we are going to discuss about sunflower and neem, mango, teakwood, etc. These are all examples for dicotyledonous leaves. Groundnut and sweet peas, etc. All these are belongs to dicotyledon plants. So in these plants, how the anatomy is present? What are the different anatomical structures? Let us see few characteristics of dicotyledonous leaf. Next, students, the vertical section of a dorsiventral leaf structure can be seen on the screen. So in this vertical section of a dorsiventral leaf, through the lamina shows three main parts. What are the three main parts can be noticed in this dicotyledonous leaf transverse section? First one epidermis, second one mesophyll, and third one vascular system. Now let us learn about these three parts in detail in this video. So make sure we are going to discuss about dorsiventral leaf. One point for your kind notice, why this dicotyledonous leaf is called as dorsiventral leaf. Dorsal side is vary from ventral side. How come it is? So let us see in detail about this point. With the first part of the dicotyledonous leaf, it is nothing but epidermis. Look at the screen, everybody, students. Epidermis, which covers the both upper surface and lower surface of the leaf. It has a conspicuous cuticle, right? So here the upper surface is called adaxial epidermis and lower surface is called abaxial epidermis. So cuticle can be seen at the early age of the plant organs in the leaves, and of course this can be seen up to last phase of the leaf also very clearly. Hence it is nothing but called as conspicuous cuticle. If the cuticle is not visible clearly, then that type of cuticle is called as inconspicuous cuticle. But hence it is a leaf, the cuticle can be seen very clearly, right? The role of cuticle to avoid the rate of transpiration by a process called evaporation, and the amount of water get rid outside and keeps the leaf moist forever. Next, the latter may even lack stomata sometimes. How it is possible? Let us see. The abaxial epidermis generally bears more stomata. Abaxial epidermis means the lower side. It means the ventral side leaf portion has more number of stomata than the adaxial epidermis. It means comparatively upper epidermis or dorsal side portion of the leaf, lower side portion of the leaf only has more number of stomata. Later what may happen, they may even lack stomata. Understand? So the tissue between the upper and the lower epidermis is called mesophyll. So now let us discuss about mesophyll tissue in detail. So in the screen you can see dorsiventral leaf clearly and arrangement of mesophyll cells. Now let's look at into this mesophyll concept. The tissue between the upper epidermis and lower epidermis, it means adaxial epidermis and abaxial epidermis, which is present, it is called as mesophyll tissue. Mesophyll, which possesses chloroplasts and carry out photosynthesis. So this mesophyll tissue is made up of parenchyma. It has two types of cells. Then what are the two types of cells in the mesophyll? The first one is a palisade parenchyma and the second one is sponge parenchyma. Now let's discuss in detail about this one. The adaxially placed palisade parenchyma is made up of elongated cells which are arranged vertically and parallel to each other. So you can see in this diagram, adaxial side mesophyll cells are generally oval or round in shape and loosely arranged, called as sponge parenchyma. Is situated below the palisade cells and extends to the lower epidermis. Clear? Then there are numerous large air spaces or air cavities are present between these cells. These air cavities or air spaces are meant for gases exchange and stores the gas during photosynthesis and respiration process. Understood? Then you can see chloroplasts very clearly in this palisade parenchyma tissue meant for photosynthesis. Then last but not least, vascular system, third main part of this leaf. You can see in this diagram very clearly. Vascular system includes vascular bundles which can be seen in the veins and midrib region only. That's why students, when we touch the leaf, midrib region somewhat swollen, right? And veins also somewhat swollen. Why? What's the reason? Because possesses vascular bundles. When you identify any leaf and especially midrib is swollen along with veins, it's indication that more number of vascular bundles are present at that location. Is this point is clear? Then let's move to next another important continuation concept regarding this vascular bundles. The size of the vascular bundles are dependent on the size of the veins. It means if the vein is so thick or swollen or lengthy, it means more number of vascular bundles are present. At the same time, if the veins and mid vein is thin and short in size and or small, then the vascular bundles count is also very less. Is this point is clear? Then the veins vary in thickness in the reticulate venation of the dicot leaves. The vascular bundles are surrounded by a layer of thick-walled bundle sheath cells and find the position of xylem in the vascular bundle. Is this point is clear? Then students, let's move to another important structure explanation, anatomical study of isobilateral leaf, nothing but monocotyledonous leaf. Then example, sugar cane, sorghum vulgare. Next, giames, sweet corn, Varieties sativa indica, and Triticum aestivum wheat, etc. So these all belongs to monocotyledonous leaves and called as isobilateral leaf. Why this called as isobilateral leaf? Because let's see the word meaning itself. Iso means similar, bi means two, either sides. So the leaf, monocotyledon leaf, either sides having same kind of nature, same kind of phenomenon. Hence it is called as isobilateral leaf. Now let's see anatomical characteristics of this leaf. The anatomy of isobilateral leaf is similar to that of dorsiventral leaf in many ways. What are those? Let's have a look. It shows the following characteristics and some differences. Now let us see some differences. In an isobilateral leaf, the stomata are present on the both surfaces of the epidermis, and the mesophyll is not differentiated into palisadae and sponge parenchyma. Is this point is clear? Then next, in grasses, certain adaxial epidermal cells along the veins modify themselves into large, empty, colorless cells. These are called bulliform cells, right? So this concept is most important. Let me explain once again. Plants like grasses, of course we can take many examples here like rice, wheat, jowar, maize, etc. And especially adaxial epidermis. Adaxial epidermis means nothing but upper epidermis. So this upper surface of the leaf has cells. Those cells along with the veins modify themselves into large cells and empty and colorless cells. These are called as bulliform cells. But now let us see bulliform cells function in detail. Important concept for competitive examinations like NEET and KCET. Please make a note down. When the bulliform cells in the leaves have absorbed water, then the leaves are turgid and the leaf surface is exposed because of absorbing water, right? Then when they are flaccid due to water stress, they make the leaves curl inwards to minimize the water loss. Very important phenomenon and logical. See the creation of the God. When the water stress can be noticed in the plants, then what may happen? The leaves itself curls towards inside to minimize the water loss by a process called transpiration. So the water cannot get rid outside in the form of water vapor. So the water remains in the leaves itself. So in such a way they protect themselves. Is this clear? Then one more explanation. Let's have a look regarding this parallel venation. The parallel venation in monocot leaves is reflected in the near similar sizes of vascular bundles. So expect in main veins, as the seen in vertical sections of the leaf, we can see very clearly. So the parallel venation in monocot leaves is reflected in the near similar sizes of vascular bundles, especially as seen in the vertical sections of the leaves, except in the main veins. Clear? Then students, let's discuss about one more important concept in this class about secondary growth. First of all, what is meant by secondary growth? Plant after completion of primary growth continues with the secondary growth. So the primary parts becomes into secondary parts. During this secondary growth only the growth or woodiness formation can be seen very clearly in the traits. So all the primary parts grown into secondary parts and become strong enough, and growth is increasing and the weak stem becomes into woody trunk. This is nothing but secondary growth. Understand? So now let's discuss in detail regarding this secondary growth. The secondary growth of roots and stems in length with the help of apical meristem is called the primary growth. Apart from primary growth, most dicotyledon plants exhibit an increase in growth. This increase is called the secondary growth. The tissues involved in secondary growth are two in number. Those are lateral meristems. What are those lateral meristems? Vascular cambium, and the second one is cork cambium. Is it clear? Then let us have a discussion regarding vascular cambium first of all. The meristematic layer that is responsible for cutting off vascular tissues, xylem and phloem, is called vascular cambium. In the young stem, it is present in patches as a single layer between the xylem and phloem. Later it forms a complete ring. So the complete ring you can see in this diagram, students. Next, let us see how the complete ring is forming, how the cambium ring is forming in detail. Formation of cambial ring. In dicot stems, the cells of cambium present between primary xylem and primary phloem is the intravascular cambium. Then the cells of medullary rays adjoining these intravascular cambium become meristematic and form the intervascular cambium. Thus, a continuous ring of cambium is formed. Clear? Then, in such a way, the cambium ring is forming. Next, students, activity of the cambium ring. Let's look into this concept. The cambial ring becomes active and begins to cut off new cells, both towards the inner and the outer sides. The cells cut off towards pith mature into secondary xylem, and the cells cut off towards periphery matures into secondary phloem. The cambium is generally more active on the inner side than on the outer. As a result, the amount of secondary xylem produced is more than secondary phloem and soon forms a compact mass. The primary and secondary phloems get gradually crushed due to the continued formation and accumulation of secondary xylem. The primary xylem, however, remains more or less intact in or around the center. At some places, the cambium forms a narrow band of parenchyma which passes through the secondary xylem and the secondary phloem in the lateral directions. Nothing but they are radial directions. These are the secondary medullary rays. Is it clear? Students, then let us discuss about another important concept. It is nothing but spring wood and autumn wood. The activity of the cambium is under the control of many physiological and environmental factors. Okay, students, what are those? Let's see. In temperate regions, the climatic conditions are not uniform throughout the year, like in our India, right? In the spring season, cambium is very active and produces a large number of xylary elements having vessels with wider activities. Then the wood is formed during this season is called spring wood or early wood. In winter, the cambium is less active and forms fewer xylary elements that have narrow vessels, and this wood is called autumn wood or late wood. Is this clear? Then let's see, students, some more information regarding the spring wood. You can see on the screen, students, the spring wood is lighter in color and has a lower density, whereas the autumn wood is darker and has a higher density. The two kinds of woods that appear as alternate concentric rings constitute the annual ring. Then what is the use of this annual ring, students? Let's see. Have you seen very tall and large trees nearby you or in the forest? How can we identify age of those trees? Yes, here it is, there is information. Annual rings in a cut stem give an estimate age of those trees. Understand? When the people cut those trees, then by seeing the stem nature, then we can identify approximate age of those trees. Is this clear? Then, students, one more important concept: heartwood and sapwood. In all trees, the greater part of secondary xylem is dark brown due to deposition of organic compounds like tannins, reagents, oils, gums, aromatic substances, and essential oils in the central or innermost layers of the stem. These substances make it hard, durable, and resistant to the attacks of microorganisms and insects. This region comprises dead elements and highly lignified walls and is called heartwood. Then, the heartwood does not conduct water, but it gives mechanical support to the stem. You can see how the color is present to the heartwood in the screen. The peripheral region or the border side, students, you can see there is a region called secondary xylem is lighter in color and is known as sapwood. It is involved in the conduction of water and minerals from root to leaf and all parts. So this is the function of sapwood. That's what is very soft and light brown in color. Students, hope you understood this class. In the next class, we will discuss more information regarding next concept about cork cambium. Thank you one and all.